Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to our channel. Today, we're embarking on a journey into one of the most chilling chapters in American history, a period that left a scar on the city of Atlanta and sent shockwaves throughout the nation. I'm talking about the haunting and tragic events known as the Atlanta child murders. In the late 1970s and early 1980s, a series of abductions and murders struck fear into the hearts of the Atlanta community. The victims? Innocent children and teenagers, primarily of African American descent, whose lives were cut short in a spree of violence that defied comprehension. This dark cloud of terror cast a shadow over the city, forever changing its landscape and leaving deep scars on those who lived through those harrowing times. Over the course of this video, we'll dive deep into the details of these crimes, the victims, the timeline, and the investigation that gripped the nation. We'll explore the unsettling pattern that emerged as these young lives were stolen, their families left shattered, and their futures tragically erased. At the center of this grim tale is Wayne Williams, a name that would become synonymous with the Atlanta child murders. Convicted of two of the killings, Williams' arrest and subsequent trial raised questions that continue to linger to this day. Was he truly responsible for these heinous acts, or did the city hastily grasp at a suspect to ease its collective fear and outrage? But beyond the case itself, we'll delve into the broader implications of these events. We'll examine the racial dynamics that shaped the investigation, the role of media in shaping public perception, and the lingering doubts that still plague the minds of many. As time has passed and new technologies have emerged, the case has been revisited, casting doubt on the validity of the conclusions drawn decades ago. So buckle up, because what lies ahead is a journey into the heart of darkness, a tale of lives lost, communities shattered, and a city forever changed. Join us as we unravel the enigma of the Atlanta child murders, exploring the cases, controversies, and lingering questions that continue to haunt our collective memory. The Atlanta child murders represent one of the most haunting and tragic periods in American history, specifically in the late 1970s and early 1980s. This series of heinous crimes involved the abduction and murder of a significant number of young African American children and teenagers in Atlanta's Georgia. The case garnered national attention, sparking fear and outrage within the community and the nation as a whole. The timeline of the Atlanta child murders is generally believed to have begun in 1979 and continued until 1981, although the exact number of victims remains disputed. The official count stands at 28 victims, although some sources suggest that the actual number might be higher. The majority of the victims were African American children and teenagers, mostly boys, ranging in age from 7 to 17 years old. The crimes themselves followed a disturbing pattern. The victims often disappeared without a trace and were later found deceased, their bodies discarded in various locations such as rivers, woods, and vacant lots. The cause of death varied, with some victims strangled and others asphyxiated or beaten. The sheer number of cases and the fact that the victims shared similar demographic profiles raised suspicions that a serial killer might be responsible. The investigation into the Atlanta child murders was plagued with difficulties from the outset. Law enforcement faced challenges such as a lack of resources, limited forensic technology, and mounting public pressure to solve the case. The racial dynamics of the case also played a significant role. The victims were predominantly African American, and many believed that the authorities were not doing enough to address the crisis due to racial bias. As the investigation intensified, the community's frustration and fear grew. Parents were afraid to let their children out of their sight, and the city was on edge. The pressure on law enforcement to solve the case reached a critical point. In 1981, Wayne Williams, a 23-year-old African American man, came under suspicion. He had been observed near some of the crime scenes, and fibers from his home and car were found on some of the victims. In 1982, Williams was arrested and charged with the murders of two adults, Nathaniel Cater and Jimmy Ray Payne. Although he was not charged with any child murders directly, his conviction for the adult killings was seen as a way to close the case. Williams was found guilty of the two murders in 1982 and was subsequently sentenced to life in prison. Prosecutors argued that the evidence against him was compelling, including the fiber analysis and his behavior during the investigation. However, many have raised doubts about the validity of his conviction. Some believe that Williams was wrongly accused and that the true extent of the Atlanta child murders case remains unresolved. In recent years, there have been efforts to re-examine the evidence and consider other possible suspects. DNA testing and advancements in forensic technology have led to calls for a fresh look at the case. Families of the victims, as well as advocates for criminal justice reform, have questioned whether justice was truly served and whether other individuals may have been involved. The Atlanta child murders left an indelible mark on the city of Atlanta and the entire nation. It exposed deep-seated issues such as racial tension, systemic inequalities, and the challenges of investigating serial crimes. The case remains a reminder of the importance of thorough and unbiased investigations, the complexities of criminal justice, and the profound impact of violent crimes on communities.